Let's get started. So, good afternoon, everyone. Have you been having a great J Spring so far?
Yes.
Oh, I like the enthusiasm. So, I'm Tom. I'm from Belgium. I'm actually the Belgian Java user lead who is stealing ideas today from the Dutch people. So, but something not a lot of people know is that I work for InfoSupport, which is a Dutch company, but I work in the Belgium department. But when you start working at InfoSupport, you get the option to work in the Netherlands for a year. So this was me at the end of the year. I had clumps, I had a lot of orange stuff, a windmill. I felt at home. Nice, good year. Actually, when I was looking up this picture, I found, I posted it on Facebook at the time, and I found this comment. My wife still looks at me weirdly when I accidentally say doei, by the way, and it happens a lot. But I'm not here to talk and reminisce about my year here in the Netherlands, but there are a few things that I learned while I did my first project here that I kind of want to share with you. Because on my first project that I was doing in Amsterdam, I had a senior developer. Not to be offensive, but he was 2 years away from retirement, so really like a senior developer. And one day I was just coding along, and suddenly I hear, "You damn kids with your code completion, you don't even know how to code anymore." I was like, whoa! See, even the room disagrees with this. Room is shook. And I was surprised because I was just coding, I was using code completion, because code completion is normal, right? He didn't think so. Because he was an old school Vim VI guy who used Notepad without code completion, and he was the kind of person that if you don't suffer as much as he has done, then you're not a real developer. And that kind of hurt me, but my reaction wasn't all that good also. I just said, dude, go with the times. Code completion is a thing now. Just adapt. You're just being a grumpy old man. And I thought, I will never be that kind of person. 11 years later now. I was doing code reviews. We do so to give some context, every year we do code reviews for the same university. And this year, the code reviews were so different that I decided to blog about it, because now it's student code in the age of LLMs. And I had a few observations, and give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down if you think it improved or decreased. So what do you think? What happened to the sheer amount of code in the repository? Up or down? Everyone up? Yeah, because if you give a word and code vomiting machine to students, they give it. So way more code than I've ever seen before in the previous years of code review. What do you think about the general quality of the code? Up or down?
Down.
You'd be surprised. Up. The general quality actually went up. Because it's you need to realize these are second-year students. So AI and LLMs can produce code that feels better than the previous years. What do you think about the comprehension of the code? So to give some context, when we do these code reviews, it's not just we review it, here's a paper, this sucks, this sucks, this sucks, good luck. We actually go talk with the students and we explain them why we give certain kind of reviews, why you shouldn't use system out print line, but use a logger instead, and so on. What do you think happened with the comprehension? How much did the students understand the code? I see a few down, mostly down, but a few up. It depends. And I know this is like the annoying IT answer, but it really depends. Because you had certain students who plainly just copy-pasted whatever they saw. And then you had the students that were actually interacting with these models and asking, I don't understand what this is. Can you tell me more? I don't understand. So they were learning, using this tool as like a learning experience, which was quite interesting to see. One thing to note there, though, I didn't put it on the slide, but the students said that the students that were using the free version got significantly worse answers than the students who paid for it. So, doesn't feel that good, right? That we can pay for better results on our tests. What do you think happened with complexity of the code? Up or down?
Down.
Down. It went to the moon. So to give you one short example, they were building a Spring application, and they needed to implement caching. What do you do in a Spring application when you need caching? at cacheable, or at cache, a simple annotation, because everything is a simple annotation in Spring. But they, the students, asked ChatGPT, I need to do caching for my API in Java. They forgot the Spring word, and ChatGPT actually recommended them, oh yeah, but you need to install a Redis database, because Redis is excellent for caching, and then you connect your application to Redis, and then your front end can go directly to Redis as well. Can you feel the complexity of this architecture? These students had only worked for 2 weeks with Spring. When they asked, I need to build a performant REST API, ChatGPT suggested Webflux and reactive programming. Yeah, for those who don't know what it is, just listen to the reaction in the room. I think you get the deal. Sorry, was there a question?
My question was, what year is it?
Ah, what year is it? 2024, Marit. Glad you asked. It was this year, a few months ago. So, oh, you were joking, sorry, went right over my head. But in all of this, there was this tingling sensation inside me that thought, these damn kids with their damn LLMs, they don't even know how to code anymore. And at that point, actually it was just a thought that crossed through my mind. I didn't say it out loud, I didn't say it to the students, they didn't hear it. But I could feel it, I had become. I wish. It's like, I must admit, I do like the hairline, I hope. It's wishful thinking, but when it struck me like, oh no, I've become that guy. So I started on like a little journey on why is this annoying me so much? Why is this change so difficult? And if I see the change that's coming and the change that's already happened with LLMs, I wanted to create a session to basically talk about the things I learned during that journey. And I actually have 3 different topics I want to talk to you about. A bit of feelings, which is something we never do at conferences, so I'm going to do it anyway. Talking a bit about what is change actually, and then how we can adapt to change. So my promise to you today is that after this session, whatever change comes, because the examples will be in LLM and mostly AI, but whatever change comes, you can use some of these strategies and ideas to better think about it, and you'll be better prepared. Sounds good? Okay, let's start with the first thing. That's feelings. Because apparently we have a lot of different feelings about AI. I found this one from the Australian government. Australians are in denial about the impact of generative AI. So, what is it, like 50% say they've never used it, and of those 50%, 73% say this is because they don't believe generative AI is relevant. Denial. Some people are really furious. Like artists are furious about this AI-produced art. Then you have people that say, yeah, but let's just stop it. Let's get together, let's sign a petition, and we'll be able to stop all of this. No, well, maybe. The one that really got me was this one. I lost everything that made me love my job through Midjourney overnight. Because this was an artist that was able, a 3D artist for video games. And he was really proud of the monsters and cool 3D models that he could make. And cool images and such. But Midjourney took away a lot of that. And he had a colleague that said, that was using these AI tools, and they were average, but yeah, he saw like the thing that I love the most is now suddenly like disappearing, and this AI is taking these things that I love doing. And of course, you can't give a talk about AI without showing this slide, this tweet, because it's Ken Beck, one of the big thought leaders in our industry, saying, I've been reluctant, today I got over the reluctance, now I understand why I was reluctant. Value of 90% of my skills just dropped to 0, but the rest, the 10%, went up 1,000%. Now, if you put these feelings together, you might notice something recognizable. Denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance. So I suddenly realized, like, we're going through grief. Like, as a community, we're going through grief. That's, wow, that's bad. So what I wanted to say first, that these feelings are normal. Because we sometimes get so caught up in the hype bubble and everyone's telling us it's awesome, but I don't know, the first couple, actually I have a tweet from Mario that explains kind of my feelings a bit better. Attending a tech conference these days, where at least half of the speakers is busy trying to convince you that your job will totally be replaced by machines in a few years, is becoming quite stressful. But for some reason, whenever you mention this, you get a wave of hype over you. So this is what we see, and I think like, no, it's normal to feel. So I'll even show you what happened to me, because the things that you've seen today, and I saw Lise's talk, she wraps it nicely up at the end where she says, yeah, it will change a bit, but we will still have our jobs and such. But in the beginning, some speakers, because this is a sensational thing, we want you to remember us, and we want you to get great content. But what some speakers were doing in the beginning to trigger people was, yeah, if you don't use AI, you're not going to make it. This one, whoa, what kind of bullshit macho statement is this? I actually got really angry at this, but I also, and that's a bit how I am, I was on the depressed side. You know, I was angry first at the students, depressed. And then I went a bit deeper in my journey and I thought, yeah, but we're talking about change. Why is this change so difficult? And then specifically for me, and why do other people look at LLM and just go, oh yeah, cool, we'll continue. So I started diving a bit deeper into that. And I ended up actually finding something in my teacher's degree notes. Who knows about Dilt's pyramid? Nobody? A few people. So Dilt's pyramid is basically often used for if you want to change yourself. The idea is that you have different levels, and if you want to change something in your life, this pyramid gives you some guidance. For example, I'm not looking at anyone specific, but if you want to run more, yeah, exactly. If you want to run more, you look at this pyramid. One of the advices people give you is just start saying everywhere that you are a runner. Try to change your identity a little bit and tell to people, yeah, oh, that's spoilers, my bad, that you are a runner. And not just that, if you change your identity, then you will actually, and you also change your environment. Like you put your running shoes where you pass by them every day or you almost fall over them. Then this thing joins a bit together and it becomes easier to change yourself. But that is when you choose to change. This is like change that happens to you. And I believe that I had quite a bit of trouble because the higher in this triangle a change hits, the more difficult it is. So for example, when I thought that AI was going to take over my job, and I love my job very much, I dress in Java clothing constantly. So you might argue that Java is part of my identity, very high. Well, for other people, Java encoding is just a job. This is fine, this is no judgment, this is just stating what could happen. So that's more here. Yeah, I'll lose some capabilities and skills, but no.
But even a purpose, right? So if you're a developer, maybe that's your purpose, so it's kind of even attacking you on that level.
Yeah, it might even be all the way to the top. So I wanted to share this with you because if you ever feel like, this change is difficult and I have this feeling and I get angry and I get into this grief loop, look at this and try to think, why is it hurting for me? And maybe it's one of these things that at least gives you some context on why you are feeling bad. Where I actually saw this diagram first, because it has three things. If you want to change yourself, if you want to get insight why you're hurting, but also if you want to change someone else's behavior and you give feedback on that behavior. So for example, I have a teacher's degree, and during that degree they said, never tell your students they are annoying. Identity. Tell your students they're acting a bit annoying. Just a small, different wording, but it actually hits people differently on the long term. But now you might think, yeah, but of course you were feeling bad and had a difficulty with this change because this feels like a negative change. Might lose your job. It's not just when it's negative. So last year, I became a father. Oh. But I also had immense difficulties with this because, and people who have children will realize this, if you look at the diagram, what changes when you get a child?
Our environment.
That's maybe when your neighbors get a child. No, you lose sleep, all of that. But for me, I went from a husband and a Java developer to father, husband, Java developer. And that really shook me up in a way, and I had quite some difficulties with that. So it's not just when it's a positive, or not just when it's a negative change, also when it's a positive change, that triangle can give you quite some insights. So that's a bit about feelings. I know, it's a bit tacky, but... So let's talk about change, because our relationship with change is really, really weird. Because our brains really crave familiarity, so preferably no change. If you don't believe me, go to your favorite grocery store at 5 p.m. and they've changed the location of the things that you need. Super annoying. You don't want the kind of stuff, you just want to rush in in 2 minutes, be out again. So our brains really crave familiarity. But strangely enough, our brains also crave excitement. If you build, for example, the same Hello World app in the same programming language, it's going to get boring. We want exciting stuff. But how do you balance that? Because it's tricky to balance the familiarity and the excitement. And actually, I laughed at the senior developer a bit, and I neglected him. But the more I think about it, the more sensible stuff he said, but I only realized in retrospect. For example, for this one, I followed all of the news. So one day I came happy in the office, and I said, hey, have you seen this new JavaScript framework? I put number 213. I don't know if we're up to 1,000 now. And he simply said, I don't follow these trends anymore. If it's important enough, it will pop up on my radar. And my head just was like, but you're out of the loop. Why are you even a good developer yourself? Aren't you just old now? So that's what I thought at the time. And a few years later, I had a burnout. And then I realized, this is very healthy. And especially when in times now when all this change comes quickly, what I actually learned here is that you can determine how much change you focus on. You can determine explicitly, this is what I will look into, this is what I don't look into. For example, yeah, it's on my shirt. I just look at Java and maybe a few JavaScript things for the front end, but C# I don't care, Python I don't care. I really don't care. And for me personally, that was the healthiest thing I could do. Because by the way, when I had to burn out, I was on a .NET project, so maybe that's a bit related. Maybe. You know what this does, this focusing on something? Is when change feels like it's rapidly coming. Oh, that was not my intention. And you zoom in a little bit. See, if you don't look at your periphery, how much slower things seem. See? If change feels crazy fast, if you look at it like this, but if you just focus on the distance, you can feel, it almost feels like peace.
Beautiful metaphor.
But sometimes there's cows on the road. And what I mean with this is, yeah, sometimes things come on your path that you just can't ignore. To go on the negative side, yeah, if AI automates our entire job, you need to do something. You can't just keep trying. Well, it can get messy if you keep trying to run it over. But second thing the man said, because I was still super excited about new technologies, because I didn't learn anything at the time, and this is all in hindsight realizing what he said. I said, wow, this microservice thing is really, really booming. It's super exciting. We should totally do it. And he said, yeah, I looked into it, but I think we'll make the same mistake as with remote AGBs. Oh, it's so funny that like the ones that are laughing realize, and those who aren't laughing don't. But I was like many people, like, yeah. You're 2 years away from retirement. Netflix is doing this stuff. You know what he was actually trying to tell me? Anyone have an idea? he was trying to warn me about the fallacies of distributed computing, which is one of the reasons why remote EGBs go a bit iffy. Because suddenly you're distributing your systems. It's not on one PC anymore, but multiple computers. So actually, he wasn't even wrong. We did kind of, as a whole industry, make the mistake, as with remote EGBs, where we thought, oh yeah, you can just split the system in multiple subsystems and call over the network. It's not a problem. Because turned out to be a bit of a problem. The cool thing about this is that he made me realize that history truly rhymes. So if you look, and this is more something for experienced developers, but if you can look at a change that's coming, and then you look back at the past, you'll often see that it's more like a wave that's going through our industry. You see it now. We went from really short from monolithic systems to distributed systems to now we're moving towards modular monoliths again. And then if you take that into account, then you realize that there's things that we can learn from the past that we easily just shove away, like I shoved away my senior colleague. I was asked these questions during the code review, by the way. Do I still need to learn something? Literally, this was the question, huh? Do I literally need to learn something about IT? I can just use this AI tool for everything. And when you look back at history, we've been in a similar situation before. When books came out, people said, nah, you don't need to remember anything anymore, it's in the book. Why would you remember stuff? We now realize that was not true. Internet. Oh, it's even easier, you don't have to drag your books, you just go to the internet and there is all the knowledge. You don't need to know anything anymore. Google made that even better. Code completion. You don't need to know anything anymore, right? Makes everything easy. So my estimation is that for LLMs, we'll have, of course, in each of these steps, things got less relevant or not as interesting anymore to learn. But in general, we still need to use our heads. Maybe even more with these LLMs. Because what I found a bit curious by Lisa's talk earlier, by the way, I love Lisa a lot, she's great. But like many speakers on AI, she did something that I was kind of surprised at, and that was the one slide, I forgot to take a picture of it, where she mentions, yeah, by 2030 we're programming in English. So basically the idea is that for many, many years through our history, we have been getting more abstract. Assembly, then compiled languages, then interpreted language. And the idea was, what she pitched basically, we'll have text and prompts. So basically you could say, we've been here before. It's another abstraction layer. The assembly programmers probably made a lot of money if they're still doing it now. But this is kind of a natural evolution. But the one thing that gets glanced over at this point a lot, this last step is not deterministic. You can be sure of this, and then suddenly, when it gets posted, when she gave the demo with, I have an AI assistant and you don't have to, the local daytime. It was very funny. Look, you don't have to care about local daytime anymore. And then at the end of the demo, she said, yeah, okay, it worked this time. So,
and I developed drugs.
What?
And I developed drugs.
Yeah, and
using AI.
yeah, exactly. What I want to say is if you look back to history and try to see, okay, what is kind of the same and what has changed now, it can give you a lot of insight and can put this change that you're feeling into perspective. And actually the crazy thing is that OpenAI thought about all of this. I don't know if you know, but OpenAI, when GPT-4 launched a system card where they discuss all the chances, opportunities, but also the threats that these AI models present to us. One of the things that they said was, over-reliance is a failure mode, likely to increase with model capacity, blah, blah, blah. And if it gets better, users are less and less likely to challenge or verify the model's responses. We've seen this in history as well, where we put more and more trust into technology. And now they think, yeah, we're never going to be this stupid, right? So, there was this ChatGPT lawyer that basically generated a court hearing with GPT and didn't verify any of his sources. He relied too much, and he was surprised said he did not comprehend that the chatbot would lead him astray. Okay, that's a small mistake. Remember the Air Canada part? Air Canada had a chatbot that gave incorrect information to a traveler, and the airline tried to argue that the chatbot is responsible for its own actions. So to give some context, the person that was chatting had a customer complaint. I think a flight was delayed. He wanted money back. According to the official policy, he was not allowed to get his money back. Chatbot promised, you get your money back. And then they tried to argue, yeah, but it's a chatbot. We don't have to do what he actually said. So we need to be careful with these new things that we don't fully understand yet either. And I think we get a bit, led astray by all this hype. Next thing, old man. You can see I was pretty mean to him, but he comes back a lot in these slides. It's kind of the reverse now, because I went to him with a piece of code. Of course, this is simplified. And I said, hey, could you review my code so it can get merged? And I got an answer that now 10 years later might be surprising. This is too complex. Why not use a simple loop? Keep it simple. Kiss. Yeah. I don't always say the stupid part because it's kind of rude. And my reaction was, bleh. What? Because anyone that learns to develop Java now, I think, well, for who is this complex code? A few people. And that's completely okay. But he, the developer, had never seen streams, filters, and there's a lot of stuff in here. It's streaming, and then you have a filter method with this arrow thing that he had never seen before, and then these double dots to get name. What is this? I also see that it doesn't compile because collect doesn't close, but fine. What I learned here is that we sometimes have resistance to change because something looks complex, but we mix up unfamiliarity with complexity. And these are two very different concepts. If you look at this, if you're familiar with the streaming and the filtering, this is not really complex code. This is, I think, pretty easy code. But if you're not familiar with lambdas and streams and method references, this feels complex, but it's not really, maybe for you, but it's unfamiliar. Have a question?
Doesn't it, by definition, isn't it by definition more complex because you need to have more concepts in your brain to understand what it means?
In a way. But I think that when we see a change, it more relates also to the keep it simple. We have this thing where we see something, and if we think it's complex, even if it's not really complex, but we're just unfamiliar with it, we will quickly say, oh, we don't look into this. I don't like this. And I think we quickly disregard things that are actually relatively easy if you are familiar with them. I have the same thing. I don't know if you like board games. Can anyone say what this board game is? Wingspan. Wingspan, to me, is a relatively simple game once you're familiar with it. Getting people over that border of going from looking at this, thinking it's complex to them, to look, it's quite simple, and once they're familiar with it, their concept changed. And I think we often disregard changes as like, oh, that's too complex and I don't want to see that. Well, actually, it can be pretty simple if we become familiar with it. I looked at the LangChain4j documentation, and on the first intro page, they list something like this. And I was like, nah. I didn't look at LangChain for quite a long time because of this, because I was just like, it's too much, I'm not familiar with it, sure. But you see that actually, if you become familiar with things, they become less complex. So complexity and knowing something is kind of this weird balance. So if you feel a change coming or you need to change something, familiarize yourself a bit with it and it will go a lot easier. Because change is actually a shift which just requires some familiarization and some recalibration. Because once you familiarize yourself, you might have to change how you work. And that's actually the last part what I want to talk about. That's, I call it brave recalibration because stepping outside of your comfort zone always requires some bravery to do it. And some of these things that I'm going to list in recalibration are just not easy. They're actually quite scary, like adventuring and try something new. First thing I want to note is have the bravery to let go what no longer works. So you see a change happening, and then you have to drop what you're used to or what you have always done. Now, I read this great book, it's called Quit, about knowing when to quit. And they had a nice story about the Mount Everest. When you want to climb the Mount Everest, it's years of training to get there, it's very expensive to get there, and once you're close to the top, it becomes really difficult to turn back. And they had the story of this one adventurer that had said, yeah, if I don't get to a certain location at noon, I should turn back for my own safety. So what happened? He reached that location at 1, so not at noon, but an hour too late. And at that point, he had to have the bravery to say, I'm going to go back. Because when you're so close, you've invested so much money and time to get there, it's really hard to let go of something that no longer works. Unfortunately, the other people that went with him did continue, and it ended quite catastrophically. But if we look at LLMs right now, the one thing, as someone with an education degree, I'll always look at education, and this is kind of messed up now. The way we do exams, the way we test our students, having them write an essay at home, not really that good anymore. By the way, who has his or her Oracle Java certification? Yeah, or Sun. Way to date yourself. But if you look at how we do that exam, does anyone feel it adds a ton of value? Nah, almost no one. And this was actually a problem that we had in education for ages, but we never had a way to fix this. So I'm really happy that with these AI tools and such, we can have new opportunities. Like, I don't know if you know the Fuji developer certification. So this is a new initiative. It's not really related to Oracle or anything. But what they do is they give you a virtual machine. You can choose your own favorite editor. Let's say IntelliJ, because Marit is in the room. And they track everything. They track how many times did you run the code, how many times did you run the tests, how many times did the test fail, how much regression did you have. They measure everything, and then they give you a nice report. And the task they give you is really a programming task. Isn't that a much better way, by using these new AI tools, to revamp how we evaluate our students? But it takes some guts to let go of that thing, because certification and the way we had it, you always get this resistance. Yeah, but what about the people who took the exam last year? Do they need to take a new exam? How does this all work? So letting go of what actually no longer works is kind of a difficult step, and you need some bravery for that. Thing you also need is, some bravery to express concerns and thoughts, because all these changes, especially in our industry, follow this this hype cycle. I don't know if you've seen the hype cycle, but basically it states something new happens, we go crazy, like with AI, everything needs to be AI, and then we start to like come down a bit. And it's really difficult to say concerns and thoughts when we're here, because often nobody wants to listen to you. I noticed this especially last time with microservices when they came up. I was like, yeah, but isn't this like a bit too complex? And everyone was like, no, you just need to do it, you just need to do it, you just need to do it. And thoughts and concerns just fell away. Well, actually, without thoughts and concerns, and we let these things go wild, and we just drop whatever we have learned before, we can't really evolve that much. We get to, I didn't add that, but in the second Jurassic Park movie, the John Hammond, was he called, I think? The owner of the park, the old man with the gray beard, he was really excited and telling Ian Malcolm, yeah, this time we're going to do it totally differently. We're not going to make mistakes this time. We're not going to make the same mistakes this time. And Ian Malcolm basically said, no, we're going to make all new ones. And that's what we often get when we don't have decent discussions about these kind of changes. So I already said, for me, I see often everyone go to a very complex solution because complex solutions are cool. Well, actually, I really love simplicity, but getting that across to some people, to colleagues sometimes, like, yeah, no, just use server-side rendering with Spring and time relief, it's fine, instead of building this complex UI framework. But yeah, that's what hype is. So it requires some bravery to go against the stream of the hype cycle and to list these concerns decently. And finally, we're going to need some bravery to learn new skills and hone the existing ones. Because learning new skills, it sometimes feels bad to be inexperienced in something. Because it takes more effort, your brain needs to rev up way more, and it doesn't feel like it, but we need to do these things. And in the age of AI, who was here the last session? This one. Yeah, you're the speaker, so I would hope so. I believe that if you look at this AI and LLM and auto code generation, I think that the skill that we should be learning and focusing on is reading code. Because if these things are going to produce a lot of code, we will, even more than we already do, will be reading code instead of writing it. And this is one of the skills I think we need to work on. If you have questions about this, Marit's right there. We need to realize that from our existing skills, things will become even more important. Like good object-oriented programming, design-driven, domain-driven design, sorry, and design patterns will still be important in the current age of AI, to recognize things to be good or bad. And also existing skills, like look at what LLMs and AI can't really do well, like big refactorings, and get good at rewriting code very fast. Now, I'm not saying don't do anything with AI, but all the AI tools that Lisa was listing up earlier, some of them were in my slide deck, but I just got them out because was the keynote, so I assume all of you have seen it. We should be experimenting with these things. We should, but it's not everything that we should be doing. And when it comes to learning new tools and skills, recently I got very entertained by the idea of having an AI tutor. So that would be code on the left. You can choose if you actually want an avatar or something else, but someone to interact with, because the way we are learning now could go actually a lot better with someone that can answer our questions 24/7. I'm not saying we don't need teachers. We do need teachers. But if you have specific questions and you want good, fast answers, these tools, the students that I see using these tools, they are getting ahead of the curve right now. When they use it to ask explanations, what does this keyword mean, what does this code do, this is something that I think is interesting, and not even for students, but for all of us. I was learning about Kubernetes operators, and I learned everything almost through talking with a tutor like this. So it's pretty interesting to see how that's evolving. So, to conclude, we've gone through these things. Actually, our relationship with change is quite complicated. On the one hand, we want these changes. On the other hand, we don't really want these changes because we like comfort. So I hope that by explaining a couple of things and the journey I've been on for the past year has helped a bit. Know that feeling is okay, but try to see where it ends up in yourself and how you can correct and get better. I think this triangle, and I've shown you the 3 purposes. That's annoying because purpose is the first one. But you can use it in 3 ways. 1, to help yourself change something that you want to change, like the running example I give. Sorry. 2, to give feedback to students or to other people. Make sure you say, hey, you are behaving in an annoying way, and not you are annoying. And 3, yeah, to when change hits, you have an estimation on where it will hit. So I think this has so many purposes. If you look into it, it will help you a lot. So yeah, I have 2 more things I want to say to two different groups, because as you saw, we have the senior developer and then a junior developer. And to the junior developer, as you can see, to the young people here, you have so many options now. The way you can learn, if you use these tools correctly, you can go way faster than any of the senior developers have ever learned. One of the reasons that is the case is because these senior developers or people with more experience have to unlearn skills, while you have to learn skills. But it's easy to disregard the senior developers. It's easy to disregard them because they're no longer in the loop. It's easy to disregard them because they have strange ideas, but they're full of wisdom that you should exploit to the max. They really know more than you think, which I realized like 5 years later. And to the senior developers, you don't have to be senior, but the senior developers, change can hurt. Any kind of change, we honestly don't know what's going to happen, but I hope that today has helped a bit. But we've been through many changes before as an industry. We've been through really a lot of changes. And the advantage that we have and that we should definitely be doing is that the younger students often don't know what came before, and we can't let them just make mistakes that we know are going to happen based on our previous experience. But we need to be patient with these young students, because they might react in a way that we don't expect. They might be a bit arrogant like I was. But keep an open mind, and we need to help these future generations to succeed. Because, to be honest, these damn kids with their damn LLMs, they're the future. That's my talk.